Okay, all right. How's everybody doing? Great. Couple, just, from a roster standpoint here, trying to get out and practice today. Guys will be out. Rick Wagner, Joe Dahl, JD, Jared Davis will be out. Stafford, obviously. And John Atkins is sick, so I probably won't practice him today from that standpoint. Some of the other guys still a little bit, we're working through the week with them from that standpoint. We'll see what it looks like when we get out there from that standpoint. We're going to go outside, try to get on the grass. I just want to pull off the turf here. We've been on it for the last 2 days, so it usually affects the big guys first. So those are the ones I usually tend to listen to from that standpoint for their bodies. Obviously important day for us here, Friday getting starting, in the red area, make sure that we're doing a good job there. Certainly Tampa Bay has a lot of, they got a lot of really good players on offense. They do a great job in the red area, scoring points and, taking advantage of some of those opportunities. And their defense obviously is, it's very stout. We know how good it is in the run game and certainly in the red area where some of the yardage or the space gets really tighter. Teams tend to go to the run game a little bit more. And they just, they're doing a great job down there with that. So it's a big challenge for us from that standpoint. We'll just, try to do the best we can and go out there and get better here today. But normal operation for us from that standpoint. So probably just go to questions. What we got?
You could be down 2 offensive linemen this week for Sue and a pretty good defensive line from Tampa. I mean, what kind of challenge is that for you? How do you proceed there?
Yeah, this late in the season, some of those guys like Joe Dahl in that situation, we'll kind of still see how it goes here, through the next 24 hours. He's played a lot of football for us, so I feel pretty confident. We had the walkthrough on Wednesday too, so sometimes that helps from that aspect of it, kind of get a good mental day in. Certainly, I think one of the things that's kind of, I would say benefited us so far this season on a positive side would be the rotation of offensive linemen, being able to play those guys up there, Kenny Wiggins and really even, Crosby. He's had to play some games, step in and go from that standpoint for us. So we do feel that, coming into the season, we had some good guys in a rotation there. We had some good depth. We were able to kind of get those guys some experience. And when you have situations like this, you feel good about that, those guys playing and having some of those snaps under their belt. So.
What about your tackle depth behind the starters, though? I mean, what does that situation look like for you?
Offensive tackle? We do have overlap with those guys that have been able to move into those positions. So obviously with Deck and Crosby, from that standpoint, Kenny Wiggins has played tackle before too. So we kind of, that's part of the offensive line. You're either maybe a center guard center, guard tackle guard. Those are kind of the overlaps that we do prepare for. It's actually rare. Kenny's one of those guys that I would say, if he can't play all 5, plays at least 4 of the positions on the offensive line. That's why a person like that is so valuable, especially on an active roster on game day. When you're limited with the amount of offensive linemen you take, you look at those certainly you look at those circumstances when you're trying to decide on your final roster, coming out of training camp. But the value of those guys and to have a guy that can play 4 of the 5 offensive line positions is pretty rare.
Kenny Galladay's got 5 of his touchdowns, 10 catches are in the fourth quarter. Is there anything about him he's always available start to finish?
Well, yeah, obviously, certainly fourth quarter, critical plays, in time of the game where you need to make those plays. I think we know we can rely on Kenny in those situations, from a execution standpoint, of a big play standpoint, or even just in those moments when those plays come up, he's pretty consistent, which is great. That's what you want to be in those situations, especially in the fourth quarter. So I think he does a really good job with that stuff, and he works really hard. He works really, really hard at that, and those guys, really, that receiver crew has worked, even Marv and Danny, those guys have worked really hard all the way through the year to prepare themselves to be in those situations and to make plays when we need them to. So that's been really good for us.
Coach Bevel's gotten a lot of credit for what the offense has been able to do. Jeff stepping in and David stepping in. I'm just curious about Sean Ryan's impact on that room and sort of what he's given to you this year.
Yeah, I think Sean has done a phenomenal job with that group. I think he and Bev just really being on the same page, making sure that the information from the coordinator to the quarterback coach and then to the quarterbacks themselves has been really smooth from that standpoint. Sean is a very detailed coach. He does a great job. He's obviously coached some great players at the quarterback position before, and I think he just comes in every single day prepared, ready to go, and those guys in that room work really hard. So, you have to be that, detail kind of mentality, and I think he gives that to those guys. So really, I think, Sean's done a really good job with that position group.
You guys have played a lot of up-tempo games, both offensively and defensively, just the time between snaps. Is this one maybe where it's ideal to slow it down, just given some of maybe the high-octane nature of what Tampa can do?
Are you saying on the offensive side of the ball?
Just in general, I mean, this is a game where tempo and
Sure.
controlling the tempo is a little bit more important than normal.
I think just control of the game is probably the most important thing, more so than tempo. Tempo can be used for a couple of different reasons. Maybe if it's something you're doing for a specific game plan, purpose, whether it's again, just talking in general terms, whether you're, trying to put the defense in a stressful situation, force communication. You might be at home. You might be able to have better communication on offense, and just kind of press the defense from that standpoint. There's certain games where you're trying to wear maybe certain people out and get a rotation and kind of catch them in that sort of deal. Or it might be something that just you feel offensively you need for your own self purposes to kind of just, get your guys going in that direction. There's certainly plays, I would say, within a game where you can pick up and slow down the tempo based on situation. That's also another thing that we'll use those for. Defensively for us, most of the tempo is dictated by the other side of the ball. So we're either going fast or we're going slow. Whichever way they decide to go with it, that's where we have to go. But we're always prepared, knowing how offenses work, to go up tempo if we have to. We do that from day one.
Matt, wanted to ask you about tight end O.J. Howard. Been productive for them the last 2 games.
Yeah.
What challenges would he present for you guys this week?
Yeah, I think he's obviously a guy that has played really well in the league, and someone that you see in the production as of late, and that's what you expect. That's just kind of the player he is. He's a big guy. He's strong. He's powerful. He can be in line at the tight end position, block, get the edge. They do a lot of down blocks with the power run game, and he'll be right there at the point of attack. And then, when you have a player that can do all that stuff, you lose sight of how the vertical pass game is now affected, because he's a guy that can get vertical. He can win the one-on-one coverage battle, whether it's a linebacker or a safety. He's actually pretty good because he has such a big catch radius and he has really good hands. So I think that's the combination of player, especially at a inline tight end, that becomes a little bit more difficult from a defensive standpoint, especially as the production starts to pick up. More urgency goes to that type of position from us from a defensive standpoint. So we have to be prepared for that. I think that's, especially in this offense, one of the positions that puts a lot of stress on you defensively, is because that's a guy that can do both, and they will, run the ball and then throw the vertical pass game. So he kind of plays into both of those.
Someone asked you about carry on last week, but just how does he look now that
Yeah.
we're a week and a half in, and what goes into the decision bringing him back? Is it just health, or do you look at the future, I guess, what you may?
We keep it pretty short term as far as that's concerned, but I would say this. I thought he looked really good yesterday. I thought he had a really good day for us in practice. I thought he ran hard. I'm on him just to make sure he gets his conditioning and all that stuff. He hasn't played football in a while, but I liked his energy, liked where he was at yesterday in practice. I thought it was a really good spot. So we'll hopefully build on that today and then get into next week.
Value to finishing a season especially for a young player like that. Obviously, it didn't last year. He talked about it after the season.
Yeah, I think there's value. Anytime you can play an NFL football game, I think there's value in that. Especially young guys that need that experience, and just kind of to be able to put yourself in a situation where maybe the last game you played is a shorter space between the next game that you're going to play next season. I think that's always good. I think the carryover, it's a new year every year, but you want to make sure that you're, able to carry some things over. And when you're in a situation where you haven't played maybe, in several weeks here towards the end of the season, if you can get back out there and play and kind of get your mindset back in that frame, I think it just helps you push into next season a little bit better.
You and Stafford playing, is that still on the table?
Yeah, I think the Stafford conversation we've definitely talked about a lot, and really for him, that's he and I having those conversations, and we're kind of on schedule with some the doctors and that information there, and we'll just kind of go forward as far as we feel is necessary or is proper as we push forward. But it's certainly, like I said, before, it's my respect for him and his toughness and his desire to help this team and everything that he can do. I just have open ears.
Practice at some point for some point soon?
We'll see. We'll see where we are next week with that.
Sorry to interrupt there. I just wanted to make sure. Is there like a medical test or something else coming up? A date, a deadline?
There's not a date. I'm not going to get any specifics of that stuff, but it's certainly conversations that we do have with medical staff that we kind of outline to see where we're at as we push forward. We're making sure that the communication from that standpoint is just target points that we always talk to see where we're at. Sure. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it. Just warm. scarf.